All right. I want to say peace. Peace to everyone who's tuned in. This is your brother Wujao Menib Iry-Maat, and I want to say welcome to everyone. I'm humbled to for anyone to tune in to my channel. Just basically started using my channel. Been a YouTube user for quite a while. um, been making appearances on other channels and doing things with other channels, but I just decided to utilize actually my own channel pretty recent. So please, spread the word and subscribe to the channel and make sure you click the notification bell. All right. Because for those who don't know me real quick, a lot of people who do know me as a person who's an independent researcher, and I have a focus on ancient African history in general, but more specifically dealing with ancient Egypt, or as we refer to as Kemet. And I approach Kemet by way of its language. My premise is that in order to understand a culture of any kind, you have to engage it by way of its language. Why? Because language is the DNA of culture. So I'm a teacher of the ancient Egyptian language that we know as Rani Kemet. That's the actual indigenous name of the spoken language. And of course, everyone is familiar with hieroglyphic, which was indigenously called Sesh Medu-Neter. All right, so I've been teaching the language for about 8 years, almost 8 years now. And so that's where my focus is, and that's where most people know me from, in terms of my area of focus and what I do talk about. So, but I also do talk about a lot of other things. I'm pretty much a person who's familiar with a few things, that I have as far as professionally and in terms of my research area of research and even hobbies. All right. So, coming to my channel, you'll find that I'll be talking about quite a few things that I'm familiar with. I try to stay away from things that I'm not familiar with. I'm a humble student. I'm willing to learn. And, I understand, research. I understand science and so on and so forth. So I do my best to uphold to those kind of standards. I try to stay away from subjective opinions, uninformed opinions, and try to do my due diligence before I even open my mouth about things. All right. So that's just a little bit about me. And so lately, I have been talking about the political advocacy movement that we know as ADOS, the hashtag social media advocacy movement. And even before I started to open my mouth about that, I've done research into this newly formed movement that more people are familiar with now, and its co-founders. The ADOS movement is a result of the brain trust of Antonio Moore and Yvette Carnell. So I took my time to listen to a lot of their videos before I even started to open my mouth and speak on it. I feel that's the proper thing to do. I think that a lot of us rush and open our mouths and start talking about things before actually doing any research and things, and that could be detrimental. All right, so that's the latest conversation, and this is what I've been focusing on the channel so far. All right, so I just want to kind of bring everybody up to speed. If you go into my archives, I have a couple of videos that you could check out, and I hope that I've said some things on the video that you've learned from, that clarify some things for you, or at least point you in the right direction, and so on. All right. So with that brief intro, just want to kind of dive right into the conversation that I want to have tonight. So today is Friday, April 5th, and let's just go ahead and jump in. I will be posting the link for anyone to come into the panel. If you want to express yourself, you have some questions, concerns, some comments, and things like that. So I will post the link in a few minutes. All right. So I look forward to engaging. And so this is going to be a night or a video where I will engage, and I do want participation. I do want to hear from people. So don't be scared. I'm gonna post a link, and I definitely expect a few of you all to come on in. And the only thing I ask is that we practice good character, and we practice, your basic communication etiquette. We don't cut each other off, and we're not disrespectful in any form or fashion. All right, that's it. I have very simple demands when it comes to that. Okay, so as you all can see, the title of this video is Mute the Noise. Prevention, or to prevent self-sabotage. All right, and in the description, I also include instigation versus conflict resolution. Now, the reason why I titled the video that is because what we've been witnessing for quite a while, and I spoke to this briefly before, but now I want to kind of really talk about it and see what you all think about it. This whole movement, this whole demand for reparative justice is a very, very big deal. Okay, it's something that has been demanded for a very long time, for decades and centuries now, actually. Okay, so reparations, the demand for reparative justice, or what we call reparations, is not anything new. All right. And it's been ongoing for a very long time, to the point where at this point, reparative justice has not been given. Reparations has not been given for the institution of slavery and all of its vestiges. From, of course, centuries ago, it was just about chattel slavery and, what took place right after. Then as time moves forward, the damage has been piling up, to where today we have inherited accrued damages to the point where we are in our position that we're in today. And, that's a whole laundry list of things that a lot of videos and people have been talking about. This is something that Antonio Moore, as well as Yvette Carnell, have been talking about for the past 2 years. All right, so check out their channels. Definitely get caught up on the data and all the things that they've been saying since around about 2016. Okay, so I'm not here to talk about that specifically tonight. What I want to talk about is the importance of reparative justice. And the reason why I say mute the noise is because for the past month now, we've seen, or even more, we've seen people arguing back and forth, debating and fussing and keyboard fighting with each other about ADOS being against Africans, ADOS being against Pan-Africanism, ADOS being against black immigrants, and vice versa, black immigrants being against ADOS, Africans being against ADOS, Pan-Africanist being against ADOS, and this back and forth fighting has even seen its day in mainstream media. You have MSNBC, I believe, Joy Reid and her guest, Roland Martin and his guest, and so on and so forth, to where this back and forth fussing has been expressed on those platforms as well. And so the reason why I say mute the noise is because when you really sit back and you listen to all the arguments from both sides, it doesn't matter who started what, but if you listen to the arguments and the things that are being said, it is really, really, really a bunch of noise. And so, I had did a Facebook post and I started to use the hashtag mute the noise, because it's the same thing as this. And I'm sure a lot of you all have experienced this. If you're out driving and you are going to a place that you've really never been before, or you're not familiar with the directions on how to get there, and you're trying to find a location, you're trying to find a building, or you're trying to find someone's house, or whatever the case is, and you got music playing in your car, you got the children in the back making a bunch of noise, and so on and so forth, and you end up getting kind of lost, or you don't know where you are, what's the first thing that you do? The first thing that you do is that you quiet everything down. You turn down the music, or you turn it off. You tell the children to sit back and be quiet, and keep the noise down, and stop playing so much, or whatever the case is. But the point is that you have to mute the noise in order to concentrate, in order to think, in order to focus, in order to think critically, in order to be more effective. All right. So the reason why I started using the hashtag mute the noise is because this is what we're going through. A bunch of people fussing and fighting as if they're children. And here we are, we have a very, very important issue, reparative justice. And so reparative justice is like this address to a secret location, this obscure location. And we punch it in our GPS and we're trying to find it. But yet everybody in the back seat, everybody in the back of the car is making a bunch of noise. And so this is the spirit behind me saying mute the noise, with the hashtag in my Facebook post. We have to start to mute the noise so we can focus on the bigger picture. All right. And so this is why I use that hashtag. Now, I don't know if I'm the first one to use it or use it in this way or whatever. To me, that doesn't matter. I just started using it. And that's just been my slogan for the past, week or so at this point. And so this is what we have to, or we should focus on. We should focus on the bigger picture, not on this petty, chatty patty, gossipy type of back and forth things. All right. And another thing that I put in the title, as I said, instigation versus conflict resolution. So what do I mean by that? Okay, now we understand that there is fussing going on. So on top of the actual participants in the back and forth fussing, we also have people who are instigating that back and forth fussing. So you have people that are doing videos, that are giving commentary, and they're just promoting one or both sides of the fussing. Well, look what Yvette Carnell said. Look what Antonio Moore said. Look what Mark Thompson said. Look what Irritated Genie said. Look what, everybody is, or look what this Pan-Africanist said. And so on and so forth. So now we have a third thing going on, or another thing going on. We have the instigation of the fussing, and then that starts to fold into the fussing. So we have that versus what I also said, conflict resolution. And that's the side that we should be on. We witness the conflicts that are going on. We should be in about the business of resolving those conflicts when there's a flare up. Because look at it this way. If you're in a household and you got siblings, you got parents, and so on and so forth, and a conflict arises in your household, somebody in the household is or should try to resolve the argument, resolve the conflict. Teachers do it all the time with students in their schools. We do it inside of the households. We do it all the time. And if we're all in this together, especially as ADOS and quote unquote black immigrants who are our allies and should be our allies in this fight, then we should all see each other as family. And yes, we're not going to agree all the time, but we shouldn't pour gasoline on the fire. That's suicide. That's self-sabotage. You're just going to blow things up. And that's what I see that's been going on. All right. So this has been my push as of late to try to really push people to see what they're doing, and that we got to make a U-turn. We got to do better. We need to mute the noise, and we need to be about the business of conflict resolution. It's critical because I'm going to tell you, if anybody studies civics, now depending on your age, civics used to be a part of the regular K through 12 curriculum. And my understanding is that they're removing civics out of the curriculum, to me, which is crazy. But this is something that that has been going on apparently. But for those who remember civics, for those who are old enough to remember Schoolhouse Rock on Saturday morning, the cartoon that teach you about the verbs, adverbs, prepositions, a bill. Remember all those different cartoons that teach you about that? All these kinds of things, you'll know that, and to become politically competent and understanding politics, you'll understand that this is a very, very big deal, a very, very big issue, and there's a lot of things that have to transpire and take place. And so anybody who knows anything from anything about politics, especially on this subject, will know that we can't have it. We can't have the noise. We can't have the instigation, because we're already fighting an uphill battle. And I won't even say uphill. It's almost like trying to climb out of a hole vertically, like a ladder. This a climb the ladder type of thing. This is not something that's a fly by night or easy thing. This is gonna take focus. It's gonna take stamina. It's gonna take intelligence. It's gonna take research and strategy to even make progress in this endeavor. So we can't afford the noise. We can't afford the instigation. Period. That shouldn't be tolerated at all. And that's been my stance. If anybody who's familiar with me or heard me speak about this topic, wherever I speak about it at, you'll understand I have a no tolerance attitude towards the noise, towards the instigation, towards the personality worship. People even worshiping personalities. And you got all that on both sides. So I'm not blaming one side over the other. All of it just needs to stop. Period. All right, because this is bigger than any one person. This is bigger than any one organization. This is bigger than Cobra. This is bigger than the ADOS movement. This is bigger than the founders, Yvette and Antonio. This is bigger than me, bigger than anybody in this chat. This is an issue that should affect a mass amount of people. All right, we have approximately about 38 million ADOS in this country. And if you add immigrants who would also be classified as black, that number comes to about 40 to 42 million that will be under the umbrella of Black America. Okay? And we all need to be on the same page. Period. Because if you understand politics, you understand that when in the context of politics, numbers equals power. Okay? Remember, politicians move by pressure, not by applause. Okay? Always remember that. It doesn't matter how you like a person, their personality, none of that stuff. It's all on pressure, and it's an exchange. Our votes are an instrument of exchange. You exchange your vote for something in return, for policies, programs, and protection. PPP, triple P's, policy, programs, and protection. Okay? That's what you exchange your vote for. You don't exchange your vote for a smile, a nod, a wave, or just somebody to tell you what you want to hear. No. That's not how things should roll. And we have to start educating ourselves on that. So this is why everybody should support the ADOS movement, because it is an educational and political advocacy movement. Even if you don't like the manner in which a few people speak or what have you, we gotta start looking beyond that. We gotta look above and beyond that, the bigger picture. Keep your eyes on the prize. All right. So I just wanted to kind of lay that out there for everybody to understand. Anybody who's kind of been paying attention to my commentary or my comments, why I've been using the mute the noise hashtag and my position on that and what I mean by that. Okay, I don't think anybody should have a disagreement with anything I'm saying, because we just got to rise above it. Somebody's gonna have to be the bigger person, and it's gonna take all of us to be that bigger person. Okay, period. All right. I don't want to hear nobody else's video about what somebody else said about somebody else who said something about somebody else and this and that. If it's not about reparative justice, the data or strategies or the political procedures that must be carried out and followed, then why are we talking about it? You know, what else is there to talk about? When it comes to black immigrants, or the whole issue about immigrants, period, like regardless of color, if any immigrant is not an ally to this agenda, then there's no need to talk about it. And I'm not saying that to say that anybody needs to be against anybody. What I'm saying is that there's no need for a discussion. Okay, so in one of the previous videos, I talked about a sort of recent video by Trevor Noah. If you all are not familiar with Trevor Noah, he actually did a recent. Well, Trevor Noah is one of the hosts of a show called The Daily Show. All right, and you can go on YouTube and search under the title "Reparations and White Privilege: Between the Scenes." All right, because I think it's on one of the channels, and I don't like to play those videos because I don't want to get any strikes or whatever the case is. But search for that on YouTube and watch it. It's not very long. It's a video. I think it's under 10 minutes or so, and he is an immigrant. But in that video, he gave an outstanding and excellent summary of the issues of reparations, why they're necessary, who they're for, and the position of immigrants in relations to it. So he should be the poster child for how all immigrants should become and advocate as allies on behalf of and with ADOS. Okay? And anybody short of that is not even worth bringing up. So as an immigrant, any immigrants, that's who you should model your advocacy and your behavior after. Trevor Noah, period. Okay? And it was excellent. That's all anybody should have to say. Anything else is just going to add to the noise. All right? When it comes to this global claim that, we're hearing people, keep saying, that has to be understood that this particular claim that we're advocating is not a global claim. That's just something that people are going to have to accept and get past and get over it. So people shouldn't even be bringing that stuff up anymore. People had enough time to understand that, hey, this is a very specific claim. It's localized to the United States, to what took place in the United States, and it's targeting the United States government. It's not a global claim. It's not including a whole bunch of countries, not including a whole bunch of people and citizens from other countries either. That's just something that has to be understood. That's just a matter of procedures in law and legislation. Period. There's nothing to really say about that. People got to get over that. And that's it. So that shouldn't come up anymore. So what's left? The only thing left is to educate yourself on the politics, on legislation, how the government works. You got 3 branches of government. They all are in checks and balances with one another. Understand that we do have a bill that's been on the books for 30 years. People know as H.R. 40. Introduced by John Conyers. It was a way of him raising the question of reparations from independent organizations sporadically through history. He entered in 1989. He raised it to the level of a national discussion by introducing it as a piece of legislation, a bill, so that if Congress would enact the bill, it would form a commission so that the discussion and the examination of the damage of slavery will therefore be a national focus. Okay? And I know people have been calling it a study, and people don't like the fact that it's a study. They say it's just a study. But I did a previous video, so I'm not going to go into it. But I did a previous video explaining what it means when it says when people say it's a study. It's not. It's being taken out of context. It's not a study to see if slavery happened. Nobody's gonna say, show me the slave ships. I don't believe you. No, nobody's gonna do that. You just got to read it. It's to understand and examine the damage and put real substance behind the discussion, to be able to propose remedies and to unroll or to enact a reparations program. Because people have to understand, reparation comes in many forms. There's 5 major elements to reparations or reparative justice. Compensation, which is the one everybody focuses on, that's where you see the dollar sign. That's the money. And that's what everybody talks about. But people don't talk about the other 4 major elements: restitution, satisfaction, and there's 2 others that I'm missing. But I did a video on that. So look in my archives. I did a video maybe 2 weeks ago. It's called "What is Reparations?" or "What is Reparative Justice?" And I talk about those 5 things. All right. So another point. Okay, so now we have people who are ADOS or not, but I've seen a lot of ADOS people who will say things like "kill the bill," and I spoke on this before too. So I'm trying to bring everybody up to speed on a couple of things. Before I open the panel up. All right. So we have people out here saying "kill the bill, cut the check." Okay, and we have people making commentary about HR 40. Our good brother Jason Black, known as the Black Authority, he has a large following. He did a whole show just reading through HR 40. I gave my opinion of what he did. I gave my critique of what he did, and I don't think that was the best move for that to take place, because the result of that is what we see. Like, a direct result of his show caused people to turn their nose up against HR 40 in such a way to where they're saying, "Oh, it's trash, it's garbage, kill it. We don't need it, kill it. Just cut the check, cut the check, cut the check." And that is detrimental. That's taking things out of context. Because I will say this, and I spoke earlier on Garfield's show. I called in on his show. I spoke on his show briefly about a few things. That already we have people who are pessimistic about reparations. You got people who don't think it's ever going to happen. Why? Because people think that the government is, we're dealing with a white government, a white country, racism, white supremacy. Therefore, they see our demand for reparative justice, they see it as begging. They see it as our handout begging massa, or begging the oppressor, or begging the white supremacist who has all the power, and so on and so forth. So they don't have any confidence at all in it. So they're very pessimistic and say, we're wasting our time. Like, why are you asking that? Like, no, we got to do something else. Let's do for self and go for self. Let's go for self-determination and everything like that. So we have a group of people who think that way. Okay. Very pessimistic about it. Then we have people who will, like I said, look at HR 40, say it's trash, say it's garbage. We don't need to cut the check. But now, those people who think that the Democrats or all the presidential candidates and everybody who are talking about reparations right now as a result of the ADOS movement, by the way, they look at it as a scam. Like, these Democrats are just out here saying it, knowing that it's not going to ever come through. They just pandering black folks, and they just trying to win our votes and so on and so forth. Now, there may be some truth to that, because that deserves its own conversation. But we got people who will say that, and then they too are pessimistic about the whole thing. So we got to fight our own. My point is, we have to fight our own pessimism. We have to fight our own conflicts, the noise, the chatty patty, gossipy instigation that's going on, the bickering back and forth. We got to fight all that before we even get to the battlefield for reparative justice. So this is why it's very, very important for us to mute the noise. All right. And so what I said on Garfield's show was, for those people who say HR 40 is garbage, they got to be careful, because if taken out of context, what people are saying, what they mean when they say that, a lot of people, they're saying kill the bill, cut the check, as if to say that there's no commission needed. They just want the government to just cut the check. Like, the government don't have to find out if slavery happened. They know slavery happened. Just cut us a check. And see, that mentality is a fantasy. That's that mentality that's waiting for a pie in the sky, for the clouds to just drop some money out of the sky, and so on and so forth. That mentality is a lazy mentality. That mentality is an uninformed mentality. That mentality is rooted in ignorance of how this political system, this government works that we live in. Period. We live in it. We're swimming in it. So we have to utilize it. And no government, let me just speak for this government. The United States government is not about the business of writing a blank check. Reparative justice is going to come from the United States government. It's not going to come from the sky. It's not going to come from the ground. It's not going to come from anywhere but the United States government. And the government is not going to write a blank check. So, and I gave this example earlier on Garfield's show. If you have a business idea and you need some capital, you need some startup capital, you're going to search for investors. And so you're going to approach investors to invest in your business. And so I asked the question, if you have a business idea and you approach somebody and you ask them for $100,000 to invest in your business, but you don't give that person anything, no data, no business plan, it's just on the strength of you calling them up or seeing them in person and say, hey, I got this business idea. I need $100,000. Can you give it to me? What are the chances that that person going to give you $100,000? Pretty much zero. And they're going to want to see some data. They're going to want to see, your whole business plan, how they expect a return on their investment, how long, all these projections. They want to see some number crunching, some justification for those numbers, and all those kinds of things. Well, guess what? That's how the government works as well. Period. So in order for the government to enact or create a reparative justice program, a reparations program, they're going to have to do an examination. They're going to need to see the numbers. They're going to need to see the data and everything. They're going to have to examine the damage of the institution of slavery, be it from chattel slavery all the way up till the present day, and the accrued damage that we have inherited as descendants of victims of the institution of slavery, or as some people prefer to say, enslaved Africans. So they have to examine that. They have to actually do the study and crunch everything, pull data, see this, see that, see this, and see that. So a commission to do just that is necessary. So people that are saying kill the bill as if to say there's no need for a commission, they're living in a fantasy. They people that say that don't know how damaging that actually is, because that is taking it out of the realm of reality, and now they're in La La Land. They might as well go into Never Never Land or the Twilight Zone or something like that. That's where they are with that. So we got to stay grounded. We got to understand what's really at stake, what's really, really good, and what's really going on. All right. So, like I said, I don't want to, I can keep going on and on and on, but I think hopefully you all get my point. We have to mute the noise. We have to focus on the goals. We have to educate ourselves on civics, on how government works, how politics works, and all of these good things so that we can strategize and advocate most effectively. So before I do give the link out, I do also want to mention that these past few days, and I think the last day is tomorrow, for the National Actions Network, which is spearheaded by Reverend Al Sharpton. So if you all haven't been paying attention to it, what that is that's an organization that I believe Al Sharpton, I know Al Sharpton is the face of it. You know, when you think of NAN or National Action Network, you think of Al Sharpton. And so that convention is going on right now. It's been going on for 2 days so far, and I think the last day is tomorrow, I believe. And nine presidential candidates already spoke, and ones who haven't spoke yet, they're scheduled to speak. But they are coming to this convention to give a brief presentation on their politics, on their policies, what they would like to do if elected president, and to address the African American community by way of the lens of the National Actions Network, the organization, the convention. That's why they're there. And so what people have to understand is that the only reason why any of these candidates show up at such conventions is because they want your vote. Period. They want your vote. That's a major reason. So I'm not going to say that's the only reason. Okay? That's the major reason. And obviously, they're going to want to hear your concerns, depending on how the convention is set up. Because if the convention is set now, if you look at the convention so far, it's one way. The candidate gives a speech to the audience. The audience doesn't have an opportunity to, step up to the mic and express the concerns. So I guess that's done through a certain panel type of thing, and especially Reverend Sharpton is asking the candidates questions. Now, he asked each candidate, presidential candidate that is, 2 questions. One question is about prison reform and the justice system, and the other question was about reparations and HR 40. All right. So he asked every single candidate about those 2 things. And so I'm paraphrasing. So he basically said when it comes to reparations, he said that if you are elected as president, first he said that Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee has introduced a piece of legislation known as HR 40, which is a commission to study slavery, ... et cetera, et cetera. Okay. And so then he asked the candidate, he said that if you are elected president and HR 40 passes through Congress and then comes on your desk, will you sign off on that bill into law? I'm paraphrasing. That's basically what his question was to every candidate. And what's interesting is that every single candidate said yes to that question, even those who previously said no or danced around it in a different setting. So we gotta take all this in consideration. So now, mind you, these candidates are standing before a community of African Americans, black people. We're at the National Actions Network, headed by Reverend Al Sharpton. Who else is there? Reverend Jesse Jackson. And you got a whole big church, the churches movements, all within the ranks, and so on and so forth. So these politicians are seeing votes. They're seeing blocks of votes, block of vote. All of them said yes. Now, another reason why we have to mute the noise is because we have to mute the noise to focus on educating ourselves on these procedures in the process, the political process. Because although Al Sharpton asked that question is not good enough. And here's why. I did a video previously to this one. So if you go into the video archives, you'll see where I talked about HR 40, and then the title is there anything else? And the point of that video was to let people know about what's called a presidential commission. Because remember, HR 40 is a bill that is requesting Congress to set up a congressional commission to study or examine the damage of slavery, etc. Well, anybody who understands how bills are passed into law, it has to go through the House of Representatives and get a majority of votes there, come out of committee, go over to the Senate, get a majority of votes there, and if there's no amendments or no changes, then it hits the president's desk, and then the president has to sign it off, or veto it, or whatever the case is. Okay, that's basically a summary of the process, and that could take a long time. It can go from the House to the Senate. The Senate may like something but don't like something else. They may want to change something. They got to go back over to the House. They amend it, do something, send it back over to the Senate. So it's like a hot potato or volleyball going from one end of Congress to the other for a while until it's settled on before it even reaches the desk of the president. So now, what that does, by asking those presidential candidates that question, and they said yes to it now, by the way, even Bernie Sanders, even Kamala Harris, even Beto said yes. Now, previously, if you've been following them, they've been dancing around the issue, or they just outright said no. For specifics, that is, okay? So now, they're all saying yes. But if you listen to how they're saying yes, what that question does, it allows them a way out. Because if H.R. 40 never makes it out of committee or never makes it over to the Senate, because right now it's H.R., it's a House of Representative bill, which is what the H.R. stands for, House of Representative, not House Resolution, House of Representative. If it never makes it out of there, then it will never reach the president's desk. Therefore, these candidates will not be held accountable for anything. And that's letting them off the hook. So what I expressed earlier is what we really need to ask as a follow-up question. That question is okay, but it's not good enough. What Al Sharpton should ask them as a follow-up question, or replace the question with this question and ask them this. If you are, no, he can say that, Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee, proposed a bill, for a commission to be set up, congressional commission set up to study the impact of slavery, blah, blah. He can say that, and he can ask that question. But then if they say yes, then he needs to follow up and say, well, if you're elected as president, if H.R. 40 never makes it out of Congress, if H.R. 40 stays in limbo, will you, as president of the United States, therefore create your own commission, a presidential commission, which you have the power to do? Will you create a presidential commission equal to H.R. 40 in its place? Yes or no? That's how you get them. That's what we want to know. Because when you ask that question, now you understand where these candidates stand. Where these candidates stand, period. Because I'm going to tell you, go back and listen, watch the presentations. It's on Action News Network YouTube channel. They have a live stream. The one from today is so long that, YouTube takes time to process. So you probably have to wait till tonight to watch it. But today, Elizabeth Warren spoke, Cory Booker spoke, Kamala Harris spoke. Who else? I think I'm missing out somebody who spoke today, but a lot of them spoke today as well. And so later on tonight, go back and watch it. You're going to see exactly what I'm talking about. And I wanted to wait so I could play the clips, but I didn't want to wait because YouTube, the live stream was so long. I guess YouTube takes the time to process it. But go back and listen to it. Now, if you listen to Bernie Sanders, now he said yes, okay? Because now I want y'all to notice something. Anybody who's been following Bernie Sanders, every other time somebody asks him about that, he act like he don't know what reparations is. What do you mean? How does it look? When you say reparations, what do you mean by reparations? But today, when he spoke, he didn't do that. Al Sharpton asked the question, and he said yes, but. He said, his yes was so fast that you could barely hear him say yes. He said, yes, but as Clyburn said, who's, the Democrat from South Carolina, whatever, as he said, we need to do things for the distressed communities, blah, blah. So he went into his normal thing. So he said yes, but then he went into his normal thing. Now, the reason why the question that I was saying is more important is because I guarantee you that a person like Bernie Sanders, if Reverend Al Sharpton would have asked him the question that I just said, that would have been a deal breaker for Bernie Sanders, because most likely he would not have said yes to that question, because you're asking him, irregardless of HR 40, like HR 40 can just be out there in limbo forever. If you become president, will you set up a presidential commission for the equivalence of HR 40? Yes or no? And we already know that Bernie Sanders he doesn't agree with a reparative justice program. He has other policies that he's pushing. So that would have been a very, very, very interesting question to ask a person like Bernie Sanders, to see what he says, because he would have got stuck. I think he would have danced around or something. It would have been very, very interesting. So this is why we got to mute the noise, because it doesn't take rocket science. Listen, I didn't major in political science in school. I'm a computer science major. I've dealt with computers all my life. I'm a computer engineer, network administrator, the whole nine. Okay. So I'm a regular person when it comes to politics and political science. If I can educate myself on these things and see how things work, what the procedures are, to see, the appropriate or inappropriate strategies, then anybody can. I'm nobody special at all. So if I can see that is a very pressing question to ask, then everybody else should. Reverend Al Sharpton should. That should have been a follow-up question. Okay? So this is something that's been pointed out. And I'm going to tell you, I've only heard 2 candidates out of all of them ever say that they are willing to do a presidential commission for the study of reparative, the damage of slavery and so on and so forth. That is Julian Castro and Mary Ann Williamson. Now, Julian Castro was there at the this convention, and he laid it out. He did a good job. Laid out. He supports reparations. You can tell, the whole nine. Mary Ann Wilson is not there. So one of them was there, and the other one was not there. Okay, but those are only 2 candidates that have fully embraced it, and Elizabeth Warren is a very close third. So if you wanted to run down the consistency of who supports reparative justice, it would be Mary Ann Williamson, Julian Castro, and Elizabeth Warren. And when she answered the question, that's the third one I probably missed. She spoke today too. When she answered the question, she not only says that yes, she would sign it if she was president. She said she already supports the bill. But you have to understand, she's in the Senate right now, so she's not going to be a co-sponsor on a House of Representatives bill right now. But she's publicly on record saying she supports it, and she said it again today. Okay, so we got to have that understanding. So she's in support of it. Okay, so we got to take things in consideration. So anyway, I don't want to prolong this, so I'm going to pass out the link. So if anybody has anything to discuss or whatever the case is, come on in. We could chat for a while. I don't want to make these videos too long, so I want to but I do want participation. All right, so let me give me a second here. I'm gonna post the link. And again, don't be afraid or scared or anything like that. The only thing I ask is when you come in, mute your mic, of course, so you won't be disruptive. But let's just have some good character and just some basic communication etiquette. All right. So I'm gonna post a link right now, and there you go. So I'm gonna post it every now and then, so make sure everybody can see it. So feel free to come on in, jump on in, come on the panel. I can get up to 100 people in here. Okay, so I got 60 so people watching right now. All 60 of you can come on in here. All right, so let's have a nice, healthy discussion for a little while. We can, talk for a good while. Okay, So in the meantime, I'll keep running my mouth and just let you all, reiterate the importance of this. Now, another thing I want to say then is that, if you really think back, and there was a news reporter that kind of summed it up really, really good, that when John Conyers first introduced the African American Act, which is what HR 40 is, it's called the African American Act. Matter of fact, let me get the formal title of it. The formal title is Commission to Study and Develop Reparation Proposals for African Americans Act. Okay, and we all been calling it HR 40. Okay, HR 40 is simply the docket name and number, House of Representatives, and it's given the number 40. All right, it wasn't always the number 40. So if you ever want to research it, it was first introduced as HR 3745. Okay, HR 3745 was its original designation. Okay, so we have to understand that. So now what I've done, and I suggest everyone else to do, I've read them all. Okay, it was first introduced in 1989, and the latest version was this year, January of this year. I read all of them, and all of them worded pretty much the same. And the reason why I did that was to see how the wording changed over the years. And the major change was 2 years ago, I believe, in a session, Congress 114th session, or maybe the last one, 115th, where you have the changes. They went from a 7 panel commission to a 13 panel commission, and they added a couple of 1 or 2 bullet points within the writing. Okay, but if you read through it every time, you'll see if there's any changes there, and I recommend you do that. So that's what it is, the African Americans Act. All right, so I encourage everyone to check that out. But I do see that I have some people in, and I want to kind of open it up so we can get this conversation going. So for those who just came in, so welcome. And I guess one at a time, at least give your name or where you're hailing from, and then the mic is yours. But now listen, let's try to keep everything concise. Try to keep all our comments compact as possible. But yeah, so the floor is open. Hopefully you all can hear me. And by the way, if you're muted, okay, I see brother Chris. It doesn't look like your mic that you clicked on the availability of a mic or whatever. So if you can hear me, then I think you probably need to leave and come right back in. But we have brother King Sosa and brother Kadeem. So feel free to unmute yourself.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yeah, my thing is
Yo, can you hear me?
Okay, yeah, I can hear you. That was brother Chris. We can hear you now. But the brother Sosa was just starting to say something, so we'll just kind of go in turn. So
okay, perfect.
All right, so go ahead. What were you saying?
Yeah, I was just gonna say I still want to see us do the some of the talking points as far as letting people understand like how immigration affects us. Because like I said, we keep doing a lot of these bills, and a lot of people think the venom comes from a place of hatred, but they don't understand the stats, and they don't understand that it's not about having some type of hatred or vitriol towards immigrants. It's just that immigration affects us in such a way, and if not done properly, if not set up correctly, then we will suffer the most. So I think we need to start laying out data so they can see how it affects us, so they can see like it's not just, we're not just saying it just just to be divisive. It's not, you know, I mean, it's not xenophobia. It's just that it's affecting us in a way that we have to speak out. You know what I'm saying? Or we're going to end up on permanently on the bottom. So that's all I want to say. And I'm from Atlanta. I'm from Charleston, but I'm talking from Atlanta.
Okay. All right. Just real quick, I just want to comment about that because I think that's a good point, and I brought that point up before that I think we're very emotional people, and I think that the way that the black immigrant piece has been articulated, people have taken it the wrong way, and then there's some pushback, and then there's some reverse pushback of a pushback of a pushback, and so it just started this whole snowball effect. And so this is what I mean by we got to mute that noise. We should be conflict resolutionists. The last thing that we need is for people to instigate that, because it is a problem and we don't need to pour gas on it. So what I've told people to go back to ADOS101.com website, and if you read bullet point number 1 under the Black Agenda, that is really the one of the main roots of the confusion, because black immigrants are reading that thinking that it's targeting black immigrants, but it's really not. It's targeting the Democrats. It's holding the Democrats responsible and the government responsible, because if people been following politics for the past few decades, they'll understand that we have this umbrella class or group of people called minorities. And so all the way going back from Civil Rights Act to affirmative action or affirmative actions or policies that are based on affirmative actions, we have been gypped out of policies and programs and protections specifically for ADOS. And so what our own supposed politicians, the Democrats, who's supposed to be our voice in government, what they've been doing, they've been creating policies pandering minority groups and not specifically ADOS to create a cure for the damage of the institution of slavery all the way up to the present day. So what that bullet point or what's being expressed is that, listen, those days are over. Stop using black immigrants. Stop using the minorities, so-called colored people, even white women, and so on and so forth. Stop using all this stuff as if you're doing us a favor. No, those policies are fine, but we need specifics. And so when you read it, it says a specific justice claim. We need specific set-asides that are specifically to ADOS. And so that is how the conversation brewed up. And immigrants are taking it as if we're mad at the immigrants, but no, we're mad that the government is using and skewing the numbers by using immigrants of all colors, but because we got this flat black going on here in America, where if you got brown skin, you just consider black, no matter if you're an immigrant or not. That hurts us, and so we're just pointing out the damage, but everybody's taking it the wrong way. But anyway, I don't want to keep, because we kind of talked about this before, but
yeah, but I was talking about more so like when we do the show, show them some examples, like how when she brought the situation, how like say in Trinidad, where you might have where they're getting free education to become doctors, and when it comes to America, they're able to come debt free. And it's not saying that we don't want you to do that, but just talking about a way to even up that playing field would be to either have ADOS people attend college for free so they can compete, because they're challenging student loans, they go into debt to become doctors, so it's laying out an unfair advantage.
Right.
But just showing examples of how they talk about, just show examples of how we can maybe even it out. Like, we're not trying to destroy you, but let's even it out and show examples of how we can even it out and like what the talking points are. I mean, as far as that goes.
Okay, yeah, I see your point, and we got to be careful of how we articulate that, because we know that black immigrants are not in the power. They don't have the power and the responsibility to do that. It is our congressmen. It is our legislative branch of government. It is our politicians, and so they have to understand that, and then we got to be careful how we articulate that. But I agree that the more examples we can show, then, because people say people lie, but numbers don't lie. So once you show the data, and we could show, but now to Yvette and Antonio credit, they've been doing that for the past 2 years, and so but they have like over 400 hours of videos, and nobody's gonna sit and watch all of that.
And it's spread out to
yeah,
different segments, and you know what I mean. So,
exactly.
and then a lot of people just ain't gonna watch. So we got to put it in their face.
Okay. So this is what I'm speaking about, conflict resolution. So what should happen is somebody should consolidate that information and make a fact sheet and possibly convey it to them so they could put it on the website, or just have it available somewhere so people can go to either a video presentation of it, or, you know, like a one-stop shop for that kind of data, you know. So that needs to be created, some infographic thing or something. And, you know, so that's how you kind of solve that. So I mean, I agree with that 100%. But that's what needs to be done. But I think we got some other folks on here, so I'm gonna pass the mic around. I think brother Chris, you were think you want to say something next.
Peace. Can y'all hear me? Sorry about the background noise.
No problem. We can hear you.
Okay, cool. Sorry, I'm like on my way home from work, and I walk. So sorry about the noise. But I'm Chris. First of all, I want to say thanks for the show. I actually watch it whenever it comes on, and it's very good. It's one of the best I see. So thanks for doing this. I'm actually one of the moderators for the ADOS American Descendants of Slavery Facebook page, or Facebook group rather. So I see a lot of you guys post and comments in there all the time. So I just want to say thanks to everybody who's commenting and posting and learning and engaging in the healthy dialogue. 2 points I want to make real quick. First is on the mute the noise piece. Yes, you're absolutely right. We've actually made an effort as moderators in the group that Antonio and Yvette started. We made an effort, we have been making an effort to not allow in those kinds of posts. So those kinds of posts that are noise related posts, similar to the examples that you gave earlier of, you know, he said, she said about Yvette, he said, she said about Antonio, or look what this person said about that person. That's noise, right? That's noise. So we've made an active effort to not allow any of that kind of content into the group, because this is just a distraction, right? We are focused on the power structure. We're focused on our agenda. That kind of stuff is not helpful, and it's also useful to people who want to do us harm. So we just want you to know, and let everyone else to know, that we made an active effort to mute the noise, really. The second point I want to make is on the HR 40 talk. I saw all your videos on HR 40, including your response to Jason Black's video. I thought you were spot on. I've actually been advocating locally here on the ground in my neighborhood, and to my elected representatives on HR 40. I've had several meetings in the last several weeks. We've got a few more meetings coming up. So that's actually happening on the ground. But you're absolutely right. HR 40 does not need to be thrown away. It needs to be overhauled. It needs to be rewritten. I think Antonio said the same thing two days ago. Yvette has been saying that for a while now, and that's the way to go. The other path, so that's one path, right? HR 40 is one path to reparations. The other path is what you stated earlier, which was what Dr. Darity said in a tweet, which is that a president can appoint a commission independent of Congress. Now, I think that commission will end up having to go through Congress no matter what, right? Because we're talking about a large appropriation, and Congress has the power of the purse. So all that money that we're talking about, right, all those checks, plus all the other stuff, right, that's going to have to come through Congress one way or another from where I stand. So there are two paths. One is the HR 40 route, or a rewritten version of HR 40. You can call it HR 41 or HR 40 better. Doesn't matter, right?
I think we lost you. Brother Chris, if you can hear me, I think you muted yourself by accident. Okay, I think we can hear you again. You muted yourself by accident. If you can hear me.
I can't hear.
Hello?
Yeah. We can hear you again. I think you muted yourself by accident.
Oh, crap.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
No. Let
I
me
said
tell
like
you
20 minutes of words.
No. I heard you. Let me tell you where you left off. You were saying
Okay.
you were saying there's two paths. You mentioned the HR 40 path, or HR 41 or HR 40 better.
Right.
Then you said that the other path, and is your belief that of course it will ultimately have to go through Congress anyway. So you kind of left off right there.
Yeah, and so I'll just wrap it up real quickly. So that's the other path. Again, that in my estimation would probably have to go through Congress anyway, because if we're talking about all that money and all those programs and all those resources that we all think would be needed for something like this, that's going to require a large appropriation from the federal government, and that has to come through Congress legally, right? Like that's the Congress has the so-called power of the purse.
Mm-hmm.
So in my estimation, necessarily, even if the president does appoint a commission, that commission is going to have to recommend that Congress introduce legislation to actually do what that commission says it wants to do. Now, there are advantages to having that path. One, because if the president appoints a commission and the president sees the findings and then has those findings introduced, it's more likely that the president will be wanting to sign it because they had like a big hand in putting it together. It's also likely that the Congress will be moving more, moving more seriously on it because the president is pushing it, and that assumes that the president has a Congress that is friendly to him or her. So I'll wrap it up there, but those are just the two pieces I want to comment on. One is that mute the noise piece, which you're absolutely right, and then two, I just wanted to reiterate what you said on HR 40.
Okay.
Thanks, guys.
Hey, listen, that's good. I appreciate your work in the Facebook group. So yeah, I'm definitely a member, and you all have been doing an excellent job, man. That's a well administrated or moderated group. So keep up that good work, definitely.
Thank you.
So I just want to give a brief comment about what he said, and then we can move on to the next person want to make a comment. So I want to make sure that it's clear to everyone who's listening, because the brother Chris raised a good point. The fact that we understand we have three branches of government: the executive branch, legislative branch, and the judicial branch. Each of those three branches keeps each other in check. So the president does not have the power to create laws, but in this case for us, the nature of what HR 40 is, it's a bill that, if enacted, will create a commission to do some examination work, basically a research commission, if I want to kind of sum it up. And so the president in this case has the ability to do the exact same thing. And so now ultimately that is correct. The president, even if he did form a commission to actually act upon it, it will have to go through Congress, because Congress does have the power of the purse. And so you have what's called appropriation. You have appropriations legislation that have to go through. They have to give the appropriation, which is talking money, talking funding. You have to fund the commission itself, and whatever proposals that are outlined, if agreed upon and accepted, then that will be an additional step that has to take. Whether it comes in the form of policies, plural, more legislation, plural. All of those things will have to become part of the budget. And so another advantage of the president kicking it off, or that path, is because it's the president's job every year around February to give the federal budget. Now, President Trump has recently given his. Remember, the government was shut down, so his budget proposal came late because Congress was shut down. But the moment it opened up, in the news, the big news, his budget, and that's what everybody's talking about now. All these different cuts. They're trying to cut the education, $7.1 billion. They cut out the whole Special Olympics thing. They cut out. They even cut out some military stuff to, and whatnot. The whole thing. If you've been following that, you know what I'm talking about. So coming from the president's path or presidential commission, it will automatically, I'm just thinking, logically, it will be incorporated into that budget. So therefore, you're ahead of the game. So like Chris said, we have two paths, and that's what I've been explaining. We have the Congressional Commission, path number one. We call it HR 40. And we have the Presidential Commission, which is whoever's in whoever is elected if we're going to deal with 2020. Okay? And so we have to understand this, because this is how you frame your questions to these congressmen and presidential candidates. You don't ask them a question where they can get, have a backdoor escape hatch. You don't say, if it reaches your desk once it passes Congress, will you sign it? Of course they're going to say yes if they're standing in front of the African-American community and they know they need our vote. I mean, come on, because right now we're dealing with a primary. We're not dealing with the presidential election, because we don't even know which Democratic candidate is going to become the one that goes up against Trump. So right now, we're real early in the game, but they know that they need the African-American vote. And so, of course, they're going to say yes. So how we get them to stick to them and anchor them into a promise that they can't renege on is to ask that real tough question. If you're president and HR 40 is still in limbo, will you create a presidential commission that's equivalent to HR 40? Yes or no? That's how you do. You keep it simple. Yes or no? I don't want to hear no, distressed communities, but Equality Act, no, none of that. It's yes or no. Like, you see these folks in here, we got all the black churches, we got this is the African American community. If you want our vote, this is our demand. This is what we exchange in that. But anyway, I don't want to keep rambling on, but those are good points. So the mic is open. I know we have Unbiased Sports in here. We have somebody else just joined us. So feel free.
Yeah, hey, I like to give a comment since I was like one of the first to come in. But it's Kadeem.
All right.
Dave Montego on YouTube, and I'm from Atlanta. So my comment is that based on what King Sosa just said about the immigrants, like I understand where you're coming from, because it's like, for me, I would be considered a first generation of American, from my family being from Jamaica. So it's like, even if I was to get reparations, it would go more to, to provide for out of the country. But me just saying that is because, like, for immigrants or whatever, to be part of the reparations, most of that would not be provided for, like, primary communities. They would, siphon that money out into wherever they're from originally. And I don't believe that would be like, that would probably make, politicians or the Democrats to like think about the deficit or, the budget of however they're going to sort out reparations.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that's a good point. And see, we need, and this is why, like, for me, my personal stance on the whole black immigration or black immigrant argument and fussing is I always use Trevor Noah as the model. And I'm like, look, if you don't sound like Trevor Noah, then you might as well kind of stand down and just let us fight this fight, because it's an ADOS fight. And of course, we got a level above that, a rank above that, where we call flat black, where black immigrants in this country are considered black, just like ADOS are considered black. But for the purposes of this claim, we have to make that distinction. But it shouldn't be offensive to anybody, because everybody in the world does it. And it's just that when we do it, all of a sudden, all hell breaks loose. But we need allies. And also, immigrants, period. The reason why most immigrants come to this country is because of the American dream or the opportunities. And if you're black and you're an immigrant to this country, you only have access to those opportunities because of what our ancestors fought for. And so by that alone, it should be a mutual teamwork. Like black immigrants should be an ally to the ADOS because it's our ancestors who even fought for the abilities for black immigrants to come here and take advantage of the opportunities in the first place. And if people don't acknowledge
what
that,
I wanted to say was like, if the money was to go into like our infrastructures or whatever, we would help provide for immigrants as well.
Right. Yeah, that's
so
what
our
I'm saying.
programs and our our banks or whatever it could be inside of our communities. I mean, they could be included in that as well. But we have to, and we can build internationally through marketing or whatever. But we have to get ourselves prioritized.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I'm saying more immigrants need to speak on these issues. Not fussing, not fussing and say, oh, so and so said this, but more of what immigrants are saying. Like for example, in the last show, I shared the I think it's called AIC, which is African Immigrant Caucus, and those folks are not playing. It's a caucus formed by people from the 54 countries on the continent of Africa. They make no apologies about their exclusionary expressions. They exclude everybody else except for you being an immigrant from one of those 54 countries on the continent of Africa, and they have their own interests, they have their own concerns, they have their own demands, and they know enough about politics to where they know that it's about accessing government, in this country. And so what I'm saying is that black immigrants should have that same voice and whatever concerns that those are, and let them be known, and as it relates to ADOS as well, because right now that's not happening. People are too busy fussing and fighting, thinking ADOS is against them against us, and all this and that, and nobody's really creating that platform to so as to see the data and to see the differences and see the allyship. We need to see that, and there are people out there though, but I'm saying it's not enough. It's not enough. It's too much of the fussing going on. That's why I say we gotta mute the noise, and then the music. See, when you drown out the noise, you got white noise, and then when you can kill the white noise, then you can hear the melody play, then you can hear the music play, and everybody needs to sing the same song. That's what needs to go on. We all need to be singing the same song right now. Reparations or nothing.
Good.
Now, I'll just say everybody needs to be like, look. We're tired of it. It's about reparations or nothing at all. Nothing else should be coming off our lips. Like, if we can do this because other groups have done it. The LGBTQA community, in a very short period of time, they have galvanized themselves, however they did it, and have become a voice to where they're singing one song, and they're getting policies and protections for their interest group, for their group. And if we can't see that and do the same, and we've been fighting longer, then come on, man, we're just playing.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, just to even touch on that same subject, like with the AIC, and like I don't think there's no need to even be upset about that type of stuff, because like in actuality, like how you got the AIC and now this ADOS, like that's how it should be done, because I can't speak for the Africans on the continent. They know more. They have a better understanding of what their needs are, and sometimes our needs might be similar, and then sometimes our needs are going to be different. So you need individual groups dealing with specific things for those individual groups. So you shouldn't be mad at those groups separating themselves, because my need may not be your need. You may need something that I don't need, and vice versa.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I think that our hardship of coming to that realization is because we've been bamboozled into believing melanin politics. Like everybody that has brown skin is the same, and that's just not true. That's something that we just adopted in our day-to-day conversations and so on and so forth. We had this flat black thing, and it's just not the case, and we got to get over it. We gotta become politically competent, scientifically literate, so that we can avoid that, and understand that we're dealing with a caste system that uses colors as labels, and psychologically we think these colors are phenotypic in their description, and it's not. White wasn't invented until 1681, and it was invented in a caste system in order to keep somebody on top and somebody on the bottom. And this is something that Yvette and Antonio explain all the time. I forget which one of the two, but people say, okay, you know, instead of we're getting off the starting block late running the race, I think it's Yvette. She says that, you know, we weren't even starting late. We were the shoes that white America used to accumulate wealth during a development period. Because once a country comes out of an undeveloped country into a fully developed country, the amassing of wealth tapers tremendously. It's during the development period where wealth can be accumulated, and it's generational. And we were blocked out of that whole process. That's what people don't understand. And where we are now, we're talking hindsight, after the fact. That's why reparations is so important. That's the only thing that's going to fix our problem. Fixing our credit, providing jobs now, and all that other kind of stuff is good and it's necessary, but that's not going to fix the problem. And people got to understand that. But so we got Unbiased Sports, and we got Jadea, Matthew. So yeah, if you all have some comments, you can unmute yourself. All right. So now listen, if you're unable to unmute yourself, you can let me know, like type in this inside chat. Let me know if you're having any technical difficulties, but I'm gonna keep on talking or whatnot. I'm trying to keep up with the comments too, because, you know, like I said, I want to engage everybody, but I'm gonna post the link one more time, because like I said, I don't want to make these videos too long, and I think the points have been made, but I'm gonna post the link one more time. So if anybody wants to come in as a final call and you know, voice your opinion, your concern, or whatever the case is, be my guest, and don't be afraid. Sisters, any sisters out there, you know, would like to hear from, you know, a female's perspective, a sister's perspective on things. So don't be afraid. All right. Jadea, Matthew, I think, okay. Yeah, you must have popped in, popped out. I mean, popped out and popped back in, but there you go. So, okay, say something now.
Hello, this is Jediah. Can you hear me?
Okay, Jediah, yeah, I can hear you now. All right, there you go.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so simple question, actually a few. I was thinking Yvette Carnell and Antonio believe this is a democratic responsibility. Mm-hmm. And isn't that process questionable? I mean, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but also, is it possible, because of that thought process, that Yvette and Antonio are possibly pushing Trump to win by not making it a Republican thing as well? And finally, should we even be using the U.S. courts system to go through this, or should we go through the world court?
Okay, those are excellent questions. So let me kind of unpack it as concise as I can. So let me work backwards. So is it a U.S. Should it be a world court thing and not a U.S. court thing? So let's correct that. What we're dealing with right now, I'm gonna mute you to prevent the background noise for a second. All right. Okay. So what we're dealing with, we're dealing with the legislative branch of government. So this has nothing to do with the courts at all. What we're advocating right now. So you got to remember, we got the executive branch of government, the legislative branch, and the judicial branch. So the judicial branch is the court system. So this is not a lawsuit or anything of that nature. We're trying to establish legislation or laws themselves, not to interpret the laws. We're trying to establish laws themselves. So So that's to clarify that portion of it. So now when you do speak about the World Court, quote unquote, the UN has already, there's a committee at the UN, I forget its exact name, but a committee at the UN has already made the determination and the recommendation that the United States pays reparations for slavery. But the only problem with that is that their recommendation is non-binding. It's not binding. It's not enforceable. Okay, so now, should we go to the UN with these grievances and stuff? Sure, but we have to understand the pros and cons, you know, and how far that's going to go. But just to clarify again, that this is not a U.S. court situation. This is a legislative thing. All right, actually, executive and legislative combined. Because we're dealing with the president and his powers, his or her powers, and then Congress. Okay, not the court. Now it may eventually end up in the court, you know, when you get into specifics after some legislation is passed. But right now, at this stage, it's not dealing with the courts. So now let's go back to your other comment. And that's a good question because I've heard a lot of people raise it. So let me just do my best to paraphrase some of the things that Yvette and Antonio have said on that subject. This issue is not really a party issue. It's really a policy issue. It's whoever is going to execute policies, programs, and protections for our demands for the entire Black agenda. All right. Now, the reason why the Democrats are targeted way more than the Republicans is because we have historically, for the past maybe 5 decades, 50 years, we have voted democratically. So the Democrats need our vote to win. And we've been voting Democratic. The Democrats have been our representative in government, been our, as far as when I say our, I mean Black America, African Americans' voice in government. So they owe us. And so for all this time, they have been supposedly representing us in government and our interests. So now it's like time to cash in on what they owe us. Two, that's one. Two, between the two parties, Republican Party and the Democratic Party, the philosophies of those parties, reparations is a big government endeavor. Democrats are historically known for big government. I mean, big spending, big government. Republicans are historically known for cutbacks, small government, you know, chipping away. And we see that to this very day. Trump's, budget was slashing everything, tax cut, education cut this, cut that. But yeah, he wants to build a wall and so on and so forth. So it's nothing but cuts. Whereas Democrats are known as big spenders, big government. And reparation calls for big government. So those are two major reasons why Democrats are targeted over Republicans. But I guarantee you that if a Republican stood up there and said that they wholeheartedly agree and willing to set up this, that, and the third for you know, matching our Black agenda and whatnot, I don't think any sane person in the world would say, nope, I ain't, you know, let's turn that down or whatever the case is. So it's not you know, rigid like that based on party. But that's the general reasons why we focus on Democrats and not the Republicans, because it's a strategy or logic thing at this point. You're not going to go to somebody who's known for small government and cutbacks, asking for trillions of dollars in either literal compensation or programs that's going to cost as much and stuff when they're already cutting back everything that exists right now. They're trying to cut Medicare. They're trying to cut the whole universal health care and everything out the window. So how do we look going to those folks talking about reparations when the Democrats, that's something that they've championed and they're known for in terms of big government. So that's the best I could do, you know, in terms of trying to be concise with that. But that's why. So it's not, but I just don't want anybody to think that Yvette and Antonio are trying to set it up where Trump will win, because the Democrats by themselves are doing a good job of that. This whole Russia investigation, that alone has really messed up the Democratic race on the Democratic Party side, because because now Trump is justified in saying, hey, you've been on a witch hunt, you've been attacking me, and the Mueller's report, it can't connect me to collusion and blah, 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 see. And now his base is going to grow and whatever the case is. So ADOS has nothing to do with that. The Democrats are doing they're kind of handing things over in the win column for Trump already on their own with what they've been focused on for the past 2 years. But if you had a follow up, you can go ahead.
Yeah, it's not much, but I understand where you're coming from when you look at it based on political affiliation. But the way I'm looking at it, and maybe that's the way it should be looked at, is this is a debt that's owed. This is not something that you would put in the same category as the programs that they're trying to slash. This is a debt that's owed by the country, not by one political party or the other. And don't get me wrong, I understand what you're saying in terms of like what the Democrats supposedly owe Black Americans, but or so-called Black Americans. But I think if they target it more towards the country and not one side versus the other, while at the same time using that, while at the same time holding the Democrats, responsible because we voted for them for such a long time. Our people have voted for them for such a long time. I don't think bringing it up to a current president in the United States right now and asking him the same questions that you would have asked anyone on the panel on the Democratic side I don't think it wouldn't make bad sense to follow that, because he's the president at this very moment. And I don't see why you would pass up on an opportunity like that. In fact, it would kill two birds with one stone. You would know exactly where the Republicans stand. Okay,
and so you raise a good point, and I think that now I just want to make this clear for those who are watching and listening that there's no video where people will find Yvette and Antonio basically boycotting any particular candidate. In fact, she did a video. I forget what it's called, but I think it's do we have a right to cancel certain candidates or whatever the case is, where she makes it clear that it's too early in the race and it's too early to do any of that kind of thing. And she's also being accused of sitting on a council of a right wing group or whatever the case is. And when she tried to address Trump, she caught flack for that. So it's like she's damned if she do, she's damned if she don't. But you raise a good point that we can walk and chew gum at the same time. And I've heard them say that this is not party based in and of itself, but they gave reasons strategically of why the Democrats are the focus for right now. But we have a lot of time. And so people can ask, but you got to understand right now, the Republicans are not having conferences and conventions right now because President Trump is going to be running, obviously, for another term. So right now we have presidential candidates that are coming out the woodworks. They're setting up conventions. They're setting up town hall meetings and stuff. So it's the Democrats that are very, very, very active. So we have to get in those spaces and ask those critical questions. But we should ask the Republicans the same questions. So I don't see too much activity in that regard. But at the same time, there's nothing preventing it, So I just want to make that clear. But I think you have a good point, and maybe somebody could ask those things. And if a Republican was smart, if Trump was smart, and see now that's a third thing. I gave two reasons. Here's a third, and I forgot to mention. The Republicans can win without African American vote. The Democrats can't. And so that's leverage. And so that all three of those kind of add together as to why the strategy is to target the Democrats over the Republicans. But again, nothing's preventing anyone from asking those critical questions to a Republican or the president himself. Now, mind you, we have to understand that the Congress is made up of both. So like you said, it is a debt owed by the government, not owed by Democrats or not owed by Republicans. It's owed by the U.S. government. And so the Senate and the House right now, Democrats basically dominate the House right now, but there are Republicans there. So it would be to our advantage to raise this question among both parties. So I agree, but at this stage of the strategy right now, the focus is on Democrats for obvious reasons. So I hope you understand that.
Sure.
Hey guys, can I jump in?
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, no problem. Like I said, I'm not an expert in this, and a disclaimer that I did not say at the beginning is that I'm not a spokesperson for Yvette or Antonio or the movement, and I usually say that at first, but I just want to make that clear too.
No, I understand.
Can I add something to
but
that?
we're part of it.
Oh yeah, go ahead. Who's that, Chris? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, it's me, and that's a really good. It's actually a really good series of questions. And there was I don't know if it was 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago on Antonio's show. Someone called in Antonio's show and said, "Listen, why don't we approach the right wing? Why don't we approach the Republican Party on this?" And I think he gave a good answer, and I think Yvette also followed up. I think she was also on the show. There's a snippet of that conversation in the ADOS, American Descendants of Slavery Facebook group. Somebody actually cut that piece out and just, share that piece, because so many people have had this question. I think it's a really good question. What was just articulated is what I think is the rationale, and that is that it's a political decision to focus on leveraging our voting power within the party in which we have the most leverage. It's absolutely the case that ADOS have supported Democrats, have invested in the Democratic Party, have given so much to the Democratic Party with so little in return. And it's also the case that the Democratic Party is built to win with ADOS votes. The Republican Party, on the other hand, is not built, is built to win without our votes. So it's a question of strategy, right? Yes, this is a debt owed by the entire government of the United States. This is not party specific. So yes, but it's a question of political strategy. If you know that the Republican Party has shown itself to be small government, anti-government program, and in many ways anti-ADOS too, but that kind of goes for both parties. But if you know that the Republican philosophy is small government, and you know that they don't need our votes to win, and you know that we have leverage in the Democratic Party, strategically and politically, it makes more sense right now, at least. And this can change, and we don't know what's going to happen in 2020, and we can reevaluate this as we go forward. But right now, it makes more sense strategically, politically, to apply the pressure to the Democratic Party. Also, the Democratic Party is in a primary season right now. So there are multiple candidates who want to be president of the United States. That's not happening on the other side because, as was stated, the president will be the candidate. So strategically, politically, I see the logic of focusing on leveraging our voting power where we have the most power. We have limited resources and we have limited time, right? And so we want to be most effective with the resources that we bring to bear on this very, very important project. We don't have a lot of time to get this right. And so we want to make the smartest decisions politically, strategically, like right now. I think Yvette made a good point, though, in her response to that caller, which is, and I actually remember when Trump got elected and Yvette was saying saying that people should be willing to talk to Trump. I remember her videos right around the time when Trump got elected saying that people should be willing to go in and talk to Trump and go in and to negotiate on behalf of ADOS. That's on record. 2 years old now. But she also said 2 weeks ago that we had a window when Trump was elected, right? Because we didn't really know which way he was going to go with it, right? So we had a small window. But after we've seen how he's behaved in terms of policy, right? Not his personal behavior. You can have your own opinion about that. But in terms of policy, after we've seen how he and his Republican cabinet and the Republican Congress have behaved, it's much less likely now that they would be supportive of a big government trillion plus reparations program that could potentially, mean they lose their jobs, in terms of voting. So just wanted to throw that in there and just add that to it. Thanks.
Hey, listen, let me just say this. I don't have anything to add. I think that was a very, very the best explanation what you just gave. So there you go. Let's
cool. Thanks. Awesome. Yeah.
If you don't have anything else to say, I think Unbiased, we haven't heard from you yet. Unbiased, if you had something to comment about. If not, I gave the link out one more time because we're coming up to the 2-hour mark, and I want to try to keep these videos digestible because everyone that knows me, they know I can be long-winded. I'll keep you all 8-hour a whole 8-hour sessions, but I realize I don't want to go over 2 hours. I learned from watching Yvette's videos. She has a platform where she talks for an hour. She takes phone calls for the second hour. So, and Antonio's even shorter. He just does hit for an hour. So unless no one else in here has anything to kind of add, or you have something else to add, go ahead.
It's Unbiased. You know I always got support. Now look, I'm mad at you, bro, because you come on like once every month.
Nah. I know I had promised I would do a little more often than I started, but I'm still on a good start. And by the way, just let me take a second while everyone's watching. If you haven't already subscribed, please subscribe, and please I don't even say like the video, just click thumbs up, because my understanding is thumbing up videos gets it. I guess the algorithms, it gets it more exposure, whatever the case is. Share the video and all that good stuff. But please subscribe and click the bell, because I'm a person, I like interaction. Like, this interaction is good. I think Chris gave some valuable information. I think the brother that just left, Judiah, asked some excellent questions. King Sosa added to the conversation. This is what it's about. All right. I'm in full support of I mean, I can do my fill of lecturing, but I prefer panel-based discussions.
You should do both.
And yeah, and I do that. Like I said, people know me for
on your channel. You should do both on your channel.
Ancient Kemet. Yeah. I'm gonna start doing that. I'm gonna like Sosa recommended. I'm gonna see if I can have some time to kind of constant. What do you call it? Kind of make extract the data with the immigration question, and all that kind of stuff. I'm gonna see if I could find it and do that.
I'm gonna do the same.
But go ahead. So Unbiased, what were you had a comment?
Yeah. So I'm gonna say this. So far I got to go back and watch this show over. I've been on the phone. I'm on the phone now. I got them on mute. So I don't know if this was already asked or already stated. But I want to say this: that when I was listening to the reparations, how it would be done, a lot of immigrants are upset, and they would never go. Most of them would never be on board, because what I heard is coming out of their pockets.
Okay, yeah. See, that's what I'm saying. I think that's deserving.
I'm gonna go back on mute.
Okay, I think that's deserving a conversation, but we have to just be careful of how that's articulated, because of the nature of our people will misconstrue that kind of conversation. And so we've seen it already. Like, the Black Agenda on once ADOS101.com went up, people read that Black Agenda. They didn't get past the first bullet point, and people started to fuss. It's crazy. I literally watched that happen. I literally watched people read it and stop at bullet point 1 and just go crazy. Like, why is black immigrants pointed out first? Why is that the first sentence and first word in the sentence here and there? And I really had to break it down in basic reading comprehension terms. Like, I couldn't believe it. So we just got to do it. I think it should be done, but we just got to kind of be careful. And at the same time, listen, people are going to have to understand Yvette and Antonio, how they doing things is necessary. Like, I don't think people should try to apologize for them or to make excuses for them. Let them do what they're doing because it's necessary. Because, like, if you really sit back and watch Yvette's videos, she has a no tolerance, anybody could get it type attitude. Like, she doesn't care. Like, like you can tell that it's all about the issue with her. She don't care who you are or any of that. And if you really listen to her, because she critiques and she praises at the same time. She'll, like, for example, Dr. Claude Anderson, she did a video on him. She discussed what she agrees with in terms of his discussion, in terms of economics and the racial wealth gap and whatever. But then she also critiqued him, criticized some things. And if you watch her videos, that's just how she is. And then you got, and plus she's a woman. She's under the gun sometimes. People are saying what they say about her, whether she's too light skinned, whether she's accusing her of being a lesbian, married, dealing all this other kind of stuff, And then with Antonio, people are doing something similar, not as bad as far as I can see, but similar things to him. But they're necessary.
Because see, look, we're already walking on eggshells, just trying to have the conversation, trying to be so delicate and precise. I can see why eventually somebody would be like, you know what? Look, I'm just gonna flat out say it. Like, I can't just keep tiptoeing around it. Like, I can't, you know what I mean? Like, if it offends you, it just has to offend you. Because I can't keep. You know what I mean? I can't keep, and I kind of like that, because you need people out there who's like, listen, I'm gonna kick this table. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. And that's
like, you need that Malcolm, Martin Luther King back. You know what I'm saying? That yin, that yang. You need people going calmly, and then you need people to come and kick the table down. You know what I mean? So you need both.
And that's exactly what I mean, because if you compare Dr. Darity, Sandy Darity, to Yvette and Antonio, it's almost like night and day. And that's the balance, but Antonio and Yvette become the face, and then Dr. Darity is not really, he's not in the forefront like that, so people don't really get a chance to hear him or whatever the case is. But at every chance, I always try to push people to watch his lectures, watch what he's saying. But let me just take a moment to kind of look through these comments, because I'm going to close out, because we're at the 2-hour mark right now. So let me just quickly see if there's anything interesting. Not to say that nobody's comment is interesting, but I'm trying to see if there's any questions that I could answer or point somebody in the right direction. Let's see. L. Coleman says, I'm kind of working backwards. Weren't Tone, Yvette, and TBA concerned about how HR 40 describes how the committee would be formed and by whom? The answer is yes. And so as far as Yvette and Antonio is concerned, they have always pretty much been consistent in expressing that HR 40 should be tightened up, amended, or rewritten, but it shouldn't be taken out of context to say kill it, because it is an historical bill. It's been introduced from 1989. It's on the books right now, and it is amendable. So instead of killing it and trying to introduce a brand new bill, we might as well take the existing bill and try to tweak it, try to amend it. And it is absolutely possible to do that. Now, whether it will get done, that's up to the pressure, that's up to political strategy, and so on and so forth. So just to answer that question, yes. But now, notice how I answered that. I answered that for Yvette and Antonio. Now, when it comes to Jason Black or TBA, his last video gave the conclusion in people's mind that the bill is trash and kill it. And so that's where it gets a little funny, and we just got to be very careful with that, but I've already did a video giving a little bit of critique on that, like I said. But let me just keep going. Okay, one tall girl, based on the criteria, the current criteria, Yvette, Antonio, TBA wouldn't be qualified to be on the committee. Darity would qualify. Okay, and let's say that's true. Then there you go. Darity is 100% on board with Antonio and Yvette. So that, I don't think that would be a problem. Not a problem at all. And again, I recommend everybody to check out Dr. Darity's lectures. He had a recent one with the presidential candidate Marianne Williamson recently. I think it was within the last 5 days, and she asked him some questions, and you know, they basically interviewed each other. It was Dr. Darity and his wife, and they are both co-authoring a book that's going to actually address HR 40. I mean, it's going to actually provide the information that HR 40 is supposed to be set up to do. You know, matter of fact, he said the last chapter of that book is going to be you know, from his lens and the data and his research, the proposals of how a reparative justice program should be unrolled and unfolded. All right. So, you know, that's something to look forward to. But yeah, I just want to say that wouldn't be a loss if Dr. Darity could be in on that. Now, as far as the qualifications, it's not specific though. So, you know, you kind of keep that open. It's not specific to that. And we have to understand that Antonio is an attorney, lawyer or attorney, however you want to say it. And Yvette is a political science major and worked on Capitol Hill before, whatever the case is. So as far as qualifications, you know, I think there's room to look more into that. But Dr. Darity would be an excellent person within the committee, okay, or in a commission. All right, so I'm trying to address a few more, and let's see. Okay, so Netra Hotep says, ADOS, do you think that a nation? Wait a minute, I think I scrolled too fast. Okay, do you think that a nation that's currently involved in proliferating subversion, warmongering, killing civilians, etc., would allow justice to prevail in the form of reparation? Yeah, see, when you put it that way, it sets up a position that it's the same thing I said in the beginning, you know, where we have a government. If we look at the government as, okay, this is a white government, this is a government of racists, there's a government that is the extension of, or the tentacle of, the arm of racism, white supremacy, global capitalism, and a colony of capitalism. If we start to look at it that way, then it would be like, well, why bother? Like, why should we even talk about reparations, period? Why should there have ever been a civil rights movement? Why should there have been a march on Washington ever? Why? You know, we can always do that. And so we have to be careful when we frame those kinds of questions. And it's better to just equip ourselves with the competency of how this government works. And we have to, most importantly, stop looking at it from the outside. We can't live in a country and be citizens of a country, but yet behave as if we're outsiders. So we have to take advantage of our citizenship. And this is the brilliance of ADOS movement being American-centered. Why the A is on ADOS. Because if you've been a follower of Antonio and Yvette for a while, you'll notice that they used to say American DOS. You know, that was before the hashtag was, you know, this brief hashtag was formed. They used to say American DOS. And so it was about American. And that was for the purpose of centering it on our citizenship. And so because we're citizens and because we have access to government and everything, we didn't always now, but because we have access to government and everything, then let's use it and make change. Okay. And stop living as an outsider and let other people drive our lives. And now we grab the car keys and we take control. And so we have to move from a consumer failure class of people and move up to a ownership class of people, you know, and that's the attitude we have to have. And so we have to take this opportunity to give our best shot. All right. Use politics to our advantage. We're good at everything else that we get into. people say this all the time. You know, we whatever we get into, as black people in general, we're very good at. We're so good at everything we get into that we are even the best people to beat ourselves down. Like, we beat ourselves down better than our enemy beats us down because we're good at everything we do. So once we get into beating ourselves down, we become experts at that too. You know, so we got to become experts at politics, experts at government, experts at civics. And, you know, to the credit of the Moorish Science Temple, outside of the dogma aspect of it, and probably some more is going to get on me for saying that, but the civics aspect of what that camp teaches or deals with, they have a head start in civics, because that's one of the main things about the Moorish Science Temple. All right, you know, outside of the other stuff, but that civics piece, then, you know, they should be more vocal right now. And, you know, so I would look out for more more people from that camp to kind of speak on that civics. But anyway, if there's no more questions, I want to kind of close out. Been on for 2 hours now. I just want to give everybody an opportunity on the panel again. If you have anything last remarks you want to say, say it now. Forever hold your peace. Anything? Nope. All right. So again, you know, if you had a question or whatever, I definitely apologize for not addressing it, but I have been giving out the link, you know, because I want to give everybody an opportunity to speak, because it's faster to kind of speak. And we have African Emporium come in at the tail end when I'm going to close out. And I think African Emporium, I think you're listening to me from the YouTube side and not directly from in here.
Brother Wujah, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you, but I think you're listening to the YouTube feed and not in here, because you're hearing it late. You're hearing it as a delay.
Yeah, I got in late.
Yeah, so he's hearing it in the delay. Let me see if I can type to him.
Sure is. Excuse me. Yeah, I think that's. I'm sorry about that. On my.
Okay, so can you hear me?
Sorry about that, Brother Wujah.
Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? Testing.
For some reason, I can hear it through the.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Desktop. I got late. I got in late in my office. That's what I was trying to figure out.
Okay. So I don't.
Anyway,
well, if you can, I know you can't hear me. It's gonna be hard to have a conversation when you hear me like 30 seconds late.
For some reason, I can't hear it through the Zoom. Like hear you guys talking through the Zoom.
Okay. So listen. I
can't hear it.
Okay.
That's why I had my TV up just a little bit in my office.
Hopefully you can hear.
See. Okay, yeah, I saw what you typed there. Yeah. Well, I just want to say real quick, because again, forgive me, guys. I am having technical difficulties myself. For some reason, I can't hear Brother Wujah and the panel guys through the desktop. I might need to go in there and toggle through my settings, but I got in a little late. I jumped in early and I saw them come on live, and I had some things I had to take care of, and finish up some things I had to do in the market, whatever. And I was trying to listen in on the conversation as I could, also perform other tasks. But I just want to give a shout out to to you guys for having this discussion. Definitely Brother Wujah for setting this up, obviously getting your channel up and running. And, you've been had it obviously, but, being able to provide a platform so we can have this discussion. again, I also want to give a shout out to my Dagger Squad constituents as well. Ober Garfield, Sister Monica, Sister Cheryl. Everybody affiliated with that whole value. As I said, we're all family in this thing. It's more of a concerted effort to bring truth to power. This discussion here is very important, obviously, because it's, it resonates with a lot of Black people. Diaspora Africans, as well as, I call native-based Africans who are somewhat descendants of native slaves. And native slaves being our ancestors were here, again, back during the sharecropping, phase of life here. And so, again, it's a very needed conversation and discussion. The one thing I just want to add real quick before I get off here too, not hold up the panel here, is that when I hear people make the case that, we're not competent enough to be able to receive reparations, or we're not going to never get reparations from this government, from a very defeatist, position, so to speak, as if, they have no understanding how reparations work, or they just don't seem to, champion the idea that they could ever receive it from this, this country or this government, so to speak. And just real quick, I don't know if I could, but I'm going to send this to you, Brother Wuja. You might already have it anyway. But the University of Massachusetts, they have a publication out where the American government has paid out reparations since the time of its, I guess, first government body, where they was able to come together to put together policies, legislation to kind of pay out these certain values reparations up until this day. And so America has a long history of paying reparations in some form or another. They just haven't paid, the biggest one that they owe more than anything is that to the slaves. What we know as so-called slaves in this country, I mean, a lot of our ancestors. And so, it goes way back to 1866 under the Southern Homestead Act. And again, as recent as 2016, right? And we know that Obama obviously gave the Native Americans under his, president term, I think roughly about $400 million, if my memory serves me right, from the data that I was able to research a while back. So there's a case where, that the money can be paid out, or that is owed, obviously in our case. But so when I hear people say that, it's not plausible, it's not feasible for us to be able to, make such a claim, or, we just pretty much won't get it, I find it to be very kind of a incendiary kind of commentary, because it kind of deflates people who see, their value, their pain, their struggle, their strife in this country, and what their ancestors went through as a form of disrespect, right? And again, this is no swipe against any of my family out there, but a lot of times that commentary, it does come from native African slaves in this country, and also here coming from immigrant values as well, our immigrant brothers and sisters as well. And I think it hurts a lot of, the Black native slaves here, I guess, it hurts our ego a little bit when someone of another, aspect of the diaspora, comes into the fold and makes such a commentary, makes such commentary like that, I guess I should say. And I think it get rubbed, it gets kind of blown out of context or rubbed the wrong way. So again, I just wanted to put that little piece in the flight because, one thing we have to do, like Brother Wuja has said, and many other people, we have to study up on this, this agenda, this mission, this movement, however you want to kind of categorize it. I think it's very important beyond the ramifications of some form of a payment or a settlement, whatever that settlement may be. I think the national discussion is much more important than actually the payout. And I'm saying that because once you get people to admit, that they are, complicit or guilty to some certain degree of the fact that these things are owed, it also kind of shapes a person's consciousness. It kind of rewires their whole ideology about how they should view another person, or their value, how they should value another person. Because again, we're always looked at as kind of less than, or we are the have-nots, or we're the people that's not taken serious. We don't know how to organize, we don't know how to strategize, we don't know how to kind of, we don't know how to pool our resources together to kind of combat things that are keeping us pretty much in this condition. And so again, this conversation in terms of reparation under the ADOS banner, or in COBRA or DOS, DASPAC, all the different movements that are out there, I think they're very relevant now, because now we can have these discussions in-house with our children, with some of our elders who may have had, fond memories about, when they kind of heard some aspects of reparation during their time. And we can kind of reignite this, this whole, movement, so to speak. And so I salute the brothers from In the Cobra. I salute the family under the ADL's banner. Most importantly, Dr. Sandy Darity, because I think he is the figurehead above all in this most current form of reparation. I think he's most qualified at this juncture to be the head of this movement because, again, his extensive study, as a professor at Duke University, beyond that, his credentials, he spent a lot of time, uncovering a lot of this information, going back under the old laws, digging through and talking through all the different things that are out there, and has really brought it back to the forefront in a way where it kind of, negates any kind of, pushback from other people because he's well studied in the field. He has a clear understanding of what's going on out there. All right. So, but again, I just wanted to share that with the family because I know you guys are getting ready to get out of here. And again, what you're doing, Brother Wujah, is definitely commendable. Again, I know a lot of the conversation has been, kind of spearheaded around our Brother Garfield's, his stance with the N Cobra movement as well, which I salute and respect that brother immensely. The same way I do you, Wujah, and everybody that's in the back chat, because I'm a very neutral-minded brother when it comes to reality. Because I understand, there's always, different aspects of how to look at life or look at a certain agenda, how you can go about doing it. Now, if it's, again, has a very, negative tone or connotation towards, the overall aspect of what we're trying to accomplish, then, again, that could be questionable. But if there's a concerted effort where people are trying to come together to find solutions at any aspect or through different channels, then again, as long as it's not hurting anybody else or stepping on anybody else's toes, again, I know that's not always going to be the case, but I think it's worth just, keeping the conversation alive. And, at some point we can come together and kind of come to a solution. So I just want to say that. And again, I don't want to hold you guys, keep you guys late. Do subscribe to the Brother Wujah's channel. I'm happy he's building it. I definitely subscribed as soon as I saw that he was starting to kind of, drop some commentary on here as well. I'm lazy when it comes to that kind of stuff because only time I'm really on YouTube is when I'm doing my little, investment stuff or I'm searching for things that I have an interest in when it comes to finance. So I definitely need to be more, proactive at, subscribing to a lot of my brothers and sisters who have channels on YouTube as well. So power profit to the family. I do want to send you that link. I'm gonna post in the back chat, if nothing else. I think if that's useful, because I am a data chaser. I love data and what it does, data points, because it gives us a frame of reference to kind of build from, as we call it, primary, evidence in the community. But I think this is a very, very interesting publication when it comes to the historical timeline of reparations payments made from 1866 through 2018. United States government, citizen universities pretty much all coming together. It was spearheaded by Dr. Allen J. Davis. He's, ED, whatever. But again, I think it's very useful for people to have a backdraft of what to kind of look for when it comes to those kind of things. When people say that we won't be able to get reparations. All right, so I just leave it at that.
Right.
Thank you again, Brother Wujah, for what you do, and what you're doing, and keep up the good work. I definitely support what you're doing.
Okay, so I'm not sure if you can hear me in real time just yet, but I'm gonna mute you for a second. Okay. So I guess African Emporium has closed us out with a nice addition to the conversation. And so let me just do a very, very quick review and close out. So again, I want to say I appreciate everybody tuned in. Please subscribe to the channel, and hopefully you've either learned something or it sparked you to look into something. That's all I could really ask of people who are listening and everything. But let me just do a quick review. So again, I titled this the Mute the Noise: Prevention of Self-Sabotage, Instigation versus Conflict Resolution. So I explained mute the noise is that we have a lot of chatty patty, gossipy, just fussing going on back and forth. And when you really step back from it, you'll see how petty it is and how distractful. It's a distraction. It's preventing us from, moving forward. and keeping our eyes on the prize, because reparative justice, it's already an uphill battle. It's been ongoing prior to my lifetime. Anybody who's alive right now, it's been ongoing for decades, and like I said, even over a century, in terms of reparative justice. HR 40, the 40 is symbolic of 40 acres and a mule that was supposed to be given for the newly freed enslaved Africans, et cetera, all the way up until now, and even prior to that. When you dig into the history, you'll see that reparations has been a part of the discussion even prior to that. So we got to mute the noise. That's one. And then conflict resolution. When you do see the noise or you do see the conflicts arise, our job is to put it out, put out the fires, not to pour gas on the fires. So we don't need to make videos promoting the conflicts. We need to stop that. We need to actually offer clarity. We need to have educational videos. We need to try to understand what's going on and offer clarity for these things, to put the fires out. All right. So that was the main thing that I wanted to talk about. And then, we kind of got into the discussion about the National Action Network, the conference that's going on right now, HR 40, how we got two pathways. The brother Chris kind of summed that up even better than what I did, in terms of the presidential commission that could be formed or the congressional commission. And I was giving my critique of the conference that's been going on, because of course these candidates are going to say yes in front of a body of African Americans, because Democrats, they need our vote. They're going to say yes. And so in knowing that, we can't give them any wiggle room. So the better question, or the follow-up question, should have been asked that if they become president, would they form a presidential commission equivalent to HR 40 if HR 40 gets stuck in limbo, or volleying back and forth between the houses? All right, those are the potent questions to ask, because that will get the person committed. That's where you really see where they stand. Okay, because they're not, they know this stuff too. And depending on the question asked, see, that's our thing too. We got to start asking the right questions. So that was covered. And I think, I answered some questions in the chat. And so anyway, hopefully you could take away from this video and learn something. And we're going to have more discussions. I'm trying to keep this up as much as I can. All right. So make sure you subscribe. And, now I'm talking about ADOS a lot right now, but of course on this channel, I'm going to talk about, other things that I of my focus and my interest. And like I said, most people know me as an independent researcher and teacher dealing with ancient Kemet. And so, I may do a few lectures on this channel. Same thing I've done on our Seshu Mani Meta Nature channel, but I do that with the whole team, the whole crew, and the whole group and everything. But I may do a couple of things here just to kind of keep it balanced. So look out for that. And again, I appreciate everybody tuning in and listening. Share this video, subscribe, and I really appreciate that. So until next time, and I apologize if I didn't get around to your question directly or anything. And so I'll look at the chat, and maybe I'll answer it inside the comments. All right. So I appreciate it, and I want to say peace. Hope everybody enjoys the rest of the evening. All right. Peace.